Hi, and welcome to template development number 2 in Triangulation Development. As you can see on screen, this one's a little bit more difficult with an offset center. We've got the same half pattern design, and if I just move this to one side, we can start with the drawing. Okay, so first things first, we have a base which is 2 inches by 4 inches, so we could start with that. So if we click on the rectangle, we come down on screen and left click. It's 4 inches by 2 inches, so it's at 4,2 and enter, and that's the start of our pattern. Flicking the drawing back on screen just there for a second, we have an offset in 1.5 inches to start this square. Okay, so what I'm going to do is bring a polyline up, come to this corner, so polyline to this corner, then go 1, 2, 3 across. Now at that point, if I click it, because the end point is on, it's going to grab it to that corner. So I'm just going to do NEA and enter, and that will give me the near point right where I'm at, which is 1.5 inches in from the left hand side. Okay, so that's our first start. Now we're going to trace around this thing by going 1 inch across and 1 inch down, and click, 1 inch down and 1 inch back, right? And then we'll have to do an NEA, then enter, then click, 1 inch up and 1 inch back, and click, and then we can do a C for close, C and enter, and that gives us our pattern. The only other thing to put on there are the bend lines and the cut line, and you can see on there that a number of these are drawn with center lines. I'm just going to draw them all as solid lines, with the center line being the only one that's going to be actually a center line or a hidden line. So whilst I'm filling in the rest of this, which is pretty simple, you can just go by the drawing and attach it as shown on screen. But basically you're looking at 2 V's, one at either end. And now we can get back to actually doing the center line, which, like we did before, we need to open up our lines. We don't have a center line. We go to other, we go to load, then we can pull up our center line right there, and OK, and OK. Now we just need to pick our center line from our 4 options now. Grab a polyline, come down on screen, and split that pattern into 2. I'll just move it one out. There we go. And that gives us our shape, and well, we're almost ready to go. We just have to do the front view now. Now, as far as the front view, the easiest way to look at this, and I'll just put the drawing back on screen, is we've got a 1.5 inch height, so we've got a 4 inch base, a 1.5 inch height, we have a 1/2 inch inset, and then it's 2 inches across the top. And in the center there at the top, we just put the bend lines on. And if I just move it a little bit further on, you can see what I'm saying. We have this prismatic side here, the edge side, which is the half pattern sides on either end. But yeah, we're basically ready to go. Now the way that I would draw this is the 4 inch line first. So I'm just gonna change my line back to a solid line, so by layer to a solid line. Hit the polyline command, come onto this corner here, move that one straight down, and left click. Then move it across to the right and enter 4, then enter, and that will give us our 4 inch line. I'll end it at that point because I'm going to pick up another polyline from that point there, go up our 1.5 inches and in 1/2 inch and click, and then come across 2 inches and click, and then close it down to the other end like so. The last thing to do is put these two edges on. We have an edge here which goes down to the corner, so we can take that polyline from that point and go to a NEA, enter, to a near point there, and to the end of that line there. So pulling the picture back on screen, you can see that we've got exactly as drawn there, with the exception that we've got break lines except for solid lines, but everything else is as drawn. Now, before we do or start doing our development, we still have the true length line graph to put on. So I'm just going to go to polyline, coming down to the 1 height, that's all we've got on this one, coming across and click, coming down the 1.5 inch and click, and then moving this out. Because it's a little bit longer on some of the parts, I might be go to 4 inches on that. Right click and enter. Now we're ready to go. Now the first thing you should know is that because this side here is flat to view, we can literally take that shape off. Okay, so this shape here is flat to view, so we can take that one off. And if you can't see that, let me know, and I'll explain it a little bit more. But if you look at the picture again, if I just drag that one on, that side there is dead flat, and looking at it from the front, you can see that it's a flattish shape, but looking at it from the side will show us that. So with these lines selected, I'm going to do a copy. So I'm just going to hit copy, come down to this edge and copy that as the start of our pattern. So that was the easiest one yet. So looking at our pattern, we have this side here which is turned in at an angle, and then we have the perpendicular side which makes the right hand corner, which would then go up as far as our cut line to make the half pattern. And it's the same on this side, one prismatically lent inside and then one perpendicular side. Okay, so with that being said, we have the first part of our pattern on there. What we need to do now is look at where these points are. That one is obviously there, so on the side there we're looking at getting this point. So the second line on that one obviously will be this edge here going up again to that point, so we can triangulate that third point, because we're looking at a triangular shape, not something like we did last time which has two sides, or two projected points should I say. Okay, so I'm going to go up and change my color. I might do a magenta again. Then I'm going to grab a circle, come onto screen down to the point at which I need it, which is there, and stretch it across to find that point right there and click. Now I need to copy this circle down to the base of our true length line, which is there. I then draw our true length line in, which is from there to the point at which it intersects, which is there. Now I'm going to grab a circle to get the radius of our true length line, which is right there, and then I'm going to copy that large circle from its center point to the point at which I measured it, which was there, and that is the top. Don't get mistaken and put it on the bottom. It is the top. Okay. Now, looking at that, you can see where the center of that line is. It is from the top point, not the lower left or not the lower right. Okay. Okay, second line. So I'm going to change color again. Again, we're on the slopey edge. And I'll take my light blue one a second time. I'm going to come up to my circle command and then measure this line from there to there. Right, so I'll zoom in on that just for a second. That's the point we're looking at whilst developing this bent edge in. So that's the point we're looking at when we're developing this prismatically bent edge in. Okay, so that one developed from the lower left hand side, that's there. It's going to give us a point somewhere here. But because it's a bent over line, the one that's not dead straight to us, we're going to develop it. So we're going to copy this line from its midpoint or from the center point down to the bottom line. Then we're going to draw our polyline from the true height to the point of intersection on the radius of that circle. And then we're going to finish it off by drawing our true circle down to the end of that line. So now we copy it. So copy the circle we just developed from its center point. This time, because we measure from that bottom corner, we're going to drop it on the bottom corner. And you can see now where that pattern develops. So I'm going to create that back to a bilayer line, which is white. Grab a polyline, come down to this lower edge, come up to the point of intersection here, and then into the top of that line. That's our first one done. Now, all of our development so far have been over on the left hand side. It's not that busy yet. We need to do this right hand one. It's not that busy yet, so I'm not going to bother putting it on another layer quite yet. What I am going to do, however, is as we're going to measure this next one, which is going to be over to there and from the bottom over to there, is I'm going to change my color. And I'm going to take a yellow, come up to the circle command. We could effectively use this pink line because it's touching both those points and we did develop it out. We could use that as it is to find the other point. So I'm now going to go to circle and go from this corner here to that point there. Then I'm going to copy this circle from its center point down to the base of our graph. I'm going to take the last line to develop our true length line down to the point of intersection, and I'll have to turn my F9 key off to there, and then grab the last circle from the height, the true height line, and drag it down the true length line down to that point there. Now, because this circle comes from this right hand side and it intersects where that pink one is touching both sides, we're going to drop this one down to where we centered it off of, which is this lower corner here. So copy the large yellow circle from the end of our line to this point. And at that point, we can change it back to bilayer and draw in our next line, which is going to be a polyline. from the top to the intersection and to the end of the base. Okay, I'll end that one here at part 1, and I'll see you in part 2.